and welcome to another Facebook Live Thursday video. It is so good to have you here. Today we're going to be talking about a concept called intellectualizing your grief. And this has been coming up so much for me lately that I decided to write a blog post about it. You can find it over at shelbyforsythia.com/blog. It'll redirect you to my Medium page. The article is called Stop Telling Me I Dodged a Bullet. I know a lot of you know that my fiance and I broke off our engagement in May of this year, and for so many reasons it's been a very heartbreaking and a very just kind of grief-filled experience for me. And so I decided to write a blog about it because a lot of people, in their attempts to comfort me through this time and through this heartbreak in my life, have been telling me it's okay, you dodged a bullet, as in it's better that this didn't actually happen. Everything happens for a reason. Be glad you didn't sign your name off on paperwork. All this other stuff. And while these statements are true or have some nugget of truth in them, they don't really help my heart at all. It's kind of the same thing in the grief recovery method as don't feel bad or be grateful or everything happens for a reason, or these statements that are what the grief recovery method likes to call intellectually true up here. But emotionally, in your heart space, they're not helpful to you at all. They don't change your grief. And this is something that society does. So if you have faced an intellectual statement while you're grieving, I would love to hear what it is. I would love to hear what people are telling you that's intellectually true. So like a true fact, like they'll always love you. You can always go back and visit. The house will always be here. You have other pets to love. Like things that are true for your situation, but definitely didn't help your heart at all in the space while you're grieving. My hair's doing some some crazy things today, so I'm going to be messing with it a lot. But intellectualizing your grief, according to the grief recovery method, is trying to pair logic with emotion. And unfortunately, those two things don't really go together. And what does heal and what does help grief is to pair emotion with emotion, and those actually do go together. But society thinks and has this perception that if it can give you logical statements, true facts about your grief, that it's not logical for you to be grieving anymore. It doesn't make any sense that your heart is broken. And so for them to say, well, think of it this way, you didn't sign your name away to her on paper, I'm like, yeah, that's true and that's great for my situation, but it's still, the fact that it happened at all still hurts. Or for people to say, it's okay, she didn't suffer at the end. Yeah, that's true, and that's great that that happened that way, but that doesn't change the fact that I miss her and she's no longer in my life. People who say, it's okay, you can always try again for kids. Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that you've carried a child for 3 months and then lost it. You know, it just doesn't shift the fact that these things are happening for you, you know. So if you're someone who's talking to somebody who's grieving, if you're looking at somebody and making logical statements towards them, maybe don't do that. Maybe don't intellectualize somebody else's grief. The best way to connect with somebody who is grieving is to come at them with emotional statements. So things like, how are you feeling today? Adding on the today so they don't have to say how they've been feeling for the vast array of time that has passed since their grief event happened. Saying things like, I haven't touched base with you since Saturday. What's changed since then? Or saying something like, what's different today? Or where are you resonating today? Things like that that really connect with grievers on that emotional heart level. You're inquiring about their heart. You're not telling them about their situation. And that's what intellectualizing grief is, unfortunately. If you're somebody who's intellectualizing your own grief, and this does happen, I would strongly encourage you to get into your own heart space. So to see where your grief is resonating for you. So this is like things like analyzing and naming feelings. So how are you feeling today? And it can be 5 things, it can be 10 things, it can be 12 things. Just bringing yourself to a space where you stop trying to reassure yourself of all the things that are true about your situation. Because despite the fact that things are true about your situation and all of these facts are the same, it doesn't change the fact that you lost. Facts don't change the fact that we've lost something. So if you're a grieving person who is being faced with people who are bringing logic to you, like, wow, you dodged a bullet, it's so good you didn't sign your life away on paper, she's in a better place now, he'll always love you, you've got other pets and children to love, you can always come back and visit the house, we can look for you another job tomorrow. If you're having these things thrown at you after you've experienced a major loss, one thing you can come back with, and I call this advocating for your own grief, is to come back and say things like, yeah, but it still hurts. Or, yeah, but my heart is still broken. So you're acknowledging that what they're saying is true because they are trying to help. They are doing the best they can with, the information that they have, that society's taught them about grief to help you feel better. But it's always good in advocating for your own grief to remind people that what they provide doesn't always work. And in that case, when you say, yeah, but it still hurts, or yeah, but my heart is still broken, or yeah, but it doesn't change the fact that it happened, then you can sink into kind of this more emotional space where they're like, well, yeah, and they do acknowledge that feeling of, despite the fact that this is true, this still hurts because it happened that way. So that's exactly what intellectualizing your grief is, and I am so excited to have been sharing space with you today and excited to have just been a part of your Thursday afternoon. I hope this helps if you're in a space where somebody's trying to throw truths at you and it's just not working and you're like, I'm crazy because this isn't working for me. It's not supposed to work for you. Logic doesn't work with heartbreak. It just doesn't. And I talk about this tons more on the podcast. So if you want to listen to this week's podcast, you can find it in the description. I never know, above or below. It's somewhere in the description. You can listen to this week's episode. The entire top of the show, so about the first 7 minutes, is all about intellectualizing your grief and some tips for that. If you're more of a reader, you can also find Stop Telling Me I Dodged a Bullet, which is an entire article about stop intellectualizing my grief, over on my blog, which is at shelbyforsythia.com, and I will edit the show notes here, or the little Live Thursday notes, to include that link as well. It has been so good to see you today. This was a short one, but a good one, and share this with anybody who needs to hear it, anybody who is telling truths and hopes of solving people's heartbreak, or somebody who is taking on a lot of truths and expecting to feel better, because grief doesn't work that way. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Bye.